Welcome back, this is Greg with Engaging History. Today we're going to look at a Gilded Age bundle of resources. That of course refers to the American Industrial Revolution. First, let's look at the quote of the week. A photograph is usually looked at, seldom looked into. That is from Ansel Adams, perhaps the most famous of all photographers. I think it's a great quote for this particular unit, not only because the photograph was just invented during the Industrial Revolution, but also now for the first time as history teachers and history students, we can look at pictures and analyze pictures to get an idea of what is going on. This wasn't possible before the Industrial Revolution and the invention of the photograph. Remember, we study history to understand our world, avoid past mistakes, and appreciate other cultures. And as always, these lessons are designed to be fun and challenging for students. All right, first I want to look at a series of PowerPoint lessons, 7 of which are core to this unit, and then 2 additional resources on top of that, one being the 1890s America themed lesson and the other being a Jeopardy review. Now, I have these first 7 lessons in a particular order. You could teach them really in any order. A lot of these things are happening simultaneously. I like to start with a lesson on communism and capitalism. If students don't have any prior knowledge on these 2 approaches to economics, it helps to have this context so that you understand the struggles that are going on during the Industrial Revolution. I want to show you some sample slides from this. A little background on Karl Marx. Do the same for Adam Smith, the founders respectively of communism and capitalism. For some checking for understanding, I have a series of slides where I throw different phrases onto the screen. Laissez-faire. See if my students can figure out if that is in relation to capitalism or communism, and then I reveal the answer. No social classes. That is the philosophical goal of communism. All right, the second lesson is on industrialization in general. For this lesson, I take my students through a series of slides that go over some of the many industries that are booming during industrialization. Just show you one sample about steel, taking a look at some of the things that were built with steel around that time period. The third lesson is on monopolies. This is an interesting one because it is very applicable today. Besides looking at the differences between cartels, trusts, and monopolies, I like to show my students modern day examples of this. So take Starbucks for example. They made 3 major purchases in 2003, 2012. Seattle's Best for 72 million, Tivana for 620 million, and La Boulange for 100 million. This is an example, of course, of horizontal consolidation. They're buying companies that would be their competition. Here's an example of vertical consolidation. Take Microsoft, massive software company. They buy a gaming company in 2002 for 375 million, online advertising company for 6.3 billion in 2007, a social networking company for 1.2 billion in 2012, and then Nokia. They made phones, obviously, a hardware company for 7.2 billion in 2013. They're not buying their competition in terms of other companies that make software. They are buying other companies that make products, that make the hardware, that make the games. A fourth lesson is on robber barons and captains of industry. These are 2 terms used to describe some of the richest of the rich during the Industrial Revolution. If you were seen as benevolent, someone who donated money, who was good to your employees, you were considered a captain of industry. You were a leader. This one is on Andrew Carnegie, and we have to determine based on what we're reading, is he a captain of industry or a robber baron? Carnegie is usually considered a captain of industry. Another example, as you read through some of the stuff that Henry Frick did, you'd come to the conclusion that he was a robber baron. Migration and immigration. Of course, during the Gilded Age, there were many people moving to the United States from Europe, from Asia, from Latin America. I love to show my students political cartoons from the time period. This one, of course, has quite a bit of racial undertones. I think it's hugely important to talk about some of the race issues that are going on during the Gilded Age because it helps to make more sense in later units as you study things like civil rights in the 1950s and 60s. Progressivism and populism. For this lesson, I focus on 6 themes: social decay, immigration, wealth gaps, anti-capitalism, whistleblowing and muckraking, and cynicism toward owners. An activity that I do within this lesson is to throw a quote up on the screen and see if my students can match it to one of these themes. Here's one from Upton Sinclair in The Jungle. They use everything from the hog except the squeal. That might have to do with whistleblowing. A 7th lesson is on the social gospel and social Darwinism. Social Darwinism is an inherently racist idea that says that certain people are more equipped to survive than others. It's a survival of the fittest mentality. Again, some of these images here are very racist in nature, and again, think it's really important to expose students to this as you go through a study of U.S. history. After those core lessons, another one that I have in this bundle is 1890s America. I've actually made a resource like this for all decades from the 1890s to the 2010s, each of which focuses on 10 themes from that decade. Here's the first theme from this resource, which describes the whole title of the unit, a Gilded Age. Just like an object that's covered or gilded with gold, it has flaws or impurities underneath. That's exactly what was going on during the American Industrial Revolution. Also in this bundle is a Jeopardy review that goes over many of the themes and concepts that were covered in the earlier lessons. All right, let's quickly take a look at what is in these 24 pages of handouts. If you have your students organize their papers into an interactive student notebook, there's quite a few here to choose from. This first one here is the unit cover page. It has key questions and key concepts. Oftentimes what I would do is use these key questions to formulate my assessment. There's a couple pages here with political cartoons to analyze and match to themes from the Gilded Age. There's a primary source document with guiding questions on a miners' strike. There's an immigration DBQ. There's a child labor primary source document. There's 8 different historical stick figure assignments. There's a handout here with immigrant perspectives. Then I have a 4-page handout that goes with the documentary The Men Who Built America. Finally, there's a handout for Gilded Age giants that students can fill out when we talk about robber barons and captains of industry. All right, I hope this inspires you and gives you some ideas as to how to go about teaching the Gilded Age or the American Industrial Revolution. There's plenty to choose from, and hopefully you found some things here that are very helpful as you plan to teach this unit. Thank you so much for watching. Please take a minute to like and subscribe. I will put links to these lessons as well as a handful of others below. Thanks again.